Good morning, good evening gamers. Have you ever thought about making a game? Maybe even a game about Romania? I think all of us at some point, whether in our youth or just quiet moments in our solstice, each one of us had that thought crossing our minds at least once. And when those fruits of imagination start showing up, they always bring their own problems. How do we actually make this happen? Now the idea was pretty simple. What if I combine the atmosphere of Girls Last Tour with a game that honors the glorious Romanian state? Introducing MECHSODUS. In this game, a small squad of robot girls is sent out into the Romanian wastelands, driving around in a beat-up tank that sounds like it could fall apart at any second, with the mission to explore the now vast Deșertul Olteniei, which has grown way beyond its original borders and turned into a massive desert swallowing everything in its path. But MECHSODUS isn't just about the mission, it's also about the little moments along the way. The robots talking, questioning what they're doing, laughing at the absurdity of their situation. It's about exploring ruins, finding pieces of history, and slowly realizing what was lost at the desert spread. So how did we get here? My friends, I consider myself an artist with great powers. With such skill, we can bring design into our world and characters as well as mechanics. But as you know, 2D art alone is not enough to capture the full scope of our vision. To truly bring MECHSODUS to life, we must step into the third dimension. We must learn the ways of 3D art. And so, after 2 months of battling with Blender, endless tutorials, countless mistakes, and a few more than a few crashes, we finally carved out our art direction that feels just right. Our next step in this grandiose project was choosing an engine. I thought long and hard about this, weighting my options, but the most obvious choice was most certainly between Unity and Godot. Unity, of course, is the big name. It's polished, it's powerful, and it has been used to make countless indie games. You get access to a massive library of tools, assets, and tutorials. But there is always a price to pay. Unity is closed source and its licensing can be tricky, and sometimes it feels like you're borrowing tools from a landlord rather than owning the workshop yourself. Then on the other hand, there was Godot. A younger engine, yes, but one with a certain charm. Lightweight, fast, and most importantly open source. That means freedom, no strings attached, no corporate overloads deciding the fate of your project. With Godot, the tools are yours to shape, to modify, to adapt however you wish. It might not have the sheer ecosystem Unity boasts, but it welcomes creators of all levels with its ease of access and friendly workflow. After great revision by yours truly, I've settled on Godot. And with that, our little project gained its engine. You would think that after spending 2 full years in college and about 3 semesters studying C++ and Java, one would actually learn these languages, or at least understand the fundamentals of programming. For many students, these arcane languages became their magnum opus. They enjoyed learning them and took pride in mastering their complexity. That was not the case for me. After all this time, I realized I could barely write more than a constructor or a header file. This gap in understanding became very clear once I started working on the game, because programming is not optional in game development, it is mandatory. So I started writing my little game's code from tutorials, my knowledge from all these years, and from a little dubious friend, which prompted me to bloat my game with useless crap that would surely not affect us in the future. Now, I do still encounter some occasional hardships that even a certain silly machine cannot solve. And that is where the human soul comes into play. If you, my friend, think this project is interesting, please, I solemnly ask you to give me a hand into how I can implement certain mechanics, or even if it's possible. Please. Having reached our finishing segment, we can finally talk about the actual story of our game. MECHSODUS takes place in an alternate universe Romania, right after the events of Project Mureș. More on that later. After the Azomureș fertilizer plant exploded, things took a very sharp turn. In reality, the desertification issue is happening in the Dolj County, but in our universe, it spreads across the entire old region like wildfire. Since Azomureș was producing essential fertilizers needed to slow it down, its total destruction meant the desertification couldn't be stopped anymore. The land just kept drying up, expanding, swallowing towns, fields, memories. And around this time I stumbled upon a video by the YouTuber living ironically in Europe about Serbia trying to mine lithium and potentially poisoning the Danube, which honestly sounded so wild and interesting that I just had to include some sort of version in our universe. Now, following these apocalyptic events, Bosch, why Bosch? It's a long story. They swooped in and dumped millions of euros into rebuilding the so-called Sahara Olteniei. Together with the Romanian government, they developed the first generation of explorer automata, the Mark I robots. These are basically robot ladies, for unknown reasons, powered by 1.9 EDI engines built like cheap Dodges made out of cheap metal, equipped with surplus army gear. This mission was called Operation MECHSODUS, our little game's title. In the following years, no sign of these robots was ever found, so Bosch took control of the operation and began building a new generation of robots, the Mark II. They built from better materials, meaning fewer of them exist, with the objective to eliminate any evidence of the rugged Mark I robots and build infrastructure in the desert according to Bosch orders. So now that we have a setting, what is our plot essentially? Well, my ideas are still developing and changing every shape and every day, but at its core the story follows two main characters. Veta, the driver and mechanic of the tank, and Oda, the commander of the mission lead. While their mission and story is still in the works, I have some concepts planned that will take you across many parts of Old County. The player will be able to visit the county's major cities and explore the ruins in semi-open levels. Every level will feature its own mini-story and a small challenge to complete. So far I've thought of two main locations. The first one is the Clanker village, which is a settlement made out of old Mark I robots. After wandering the desert aimlessly for years, they landed up forming a small community around the church. After seeing the saints and holy paintings inside, they started copying the customs and traditions, resulting in a very weird robot monastery village vibe. The second one is Dăbuleni. Famous in real life for its watermelon culture, in the game this will be the only area untouched by the desert. It's a sanctuary of greenery, overgrown watermelons, vines everywhere, plants reclaiming everything, a strange oasis in the middle of nothingness. While these are very cool concepts, it's kind of the only thing we have right now, but we are working on finalizing more concepts like the Poison Danube, some kind of way to see into Bulgaria, and more Romanian cities and landmarks. Now, there are many more details in the plot that I'm still trying to organize, and I'm sure I've let out a lot. But do stay tuned, I will definitely gather all my thoughts and connect everything together more coherently as the project grows. So my friends, with that we've concluded our devlog. With closing remarks, I must address a few questions that you might have. First, can you try this game? Of course! I currently have a build on itch.io, which you can visit right now and test the almost non-existing features. Now I can only work on this game when motivation hits me and in the weekends, but maybe on holidays I can spend more time, so stay tuned. Second, Project Mureș. Project Mureș is essentially a shitpost of a game that itself is in development too, and is a prequel to MECHSODUS, which is not entirely correct because MECHSODUS is a sequel to Project Mureș. But if you are interested in stupid RPG Maker games, you can try it too. Chapter 3 is in development, very soon dropping. And third and final remark, should we make a Discord? I'm not 100% on this idea, but if enough people support this project and want to see it becoming something, we could totally build a place for our little community, that is, if we will have one. So with that, my friends, I hope I answered some of your questions. Make yourself at home and be sure to write your feedback in this video's comments, or if you want to participate in this, if you are interested. I welcome all feedback and ideas because we want to make art. So thank you again for your attention and have a fantastic day, my friends. So let us first slip into something a little more comfortable. Now that I slipped into something more comfortable, we may begin.